Good morning, everybody. Keylime here with another weekly preview video. So, starting again, as always, on the PC, Xbox, PS4 side of things. This time around in the event keys, we have Leonis Empire. Leonis Empire is pretty cool, actually. So, if you jump in there and you check out what you could possibly pulling out of the event keys, you'll get to see that we have a few pretty cool people, and they put them all nicely right in top for us. So starting with Voice of Orpheus, so as far as a mythic goes, the amount of damage you can do is actually pretty solid because this is boosted by all ally mana, and it's a 1-to-1 boost, so the amount of like nuke damage this can potentially do, if you put Voice of Orpheus on like your 4th slot, 3rd slot, something like that, this nuke can end up doing like 70 to like 80-ish damage. So that's actually pretty solid. He's also cleansing everybody when you do it, and then he's also giving everybody mana on top of it. The main drawback of him is that he doesn't have any loop potential with his spell, so that's something to look out for. However, as far as like a spell effect goes, I rate this extremely highly. So if you're kind of looking for a finisher type troop to add into your lineup, someone that can kind of do this is actually pretty solid. The main thing, however, about Voice of Orpheus from my point of view is that he's actually cleansing everybody on any yellow match that you do. So you can just passively be cleansing constantly with him and also have somebody that has the potential to do a pretty solid nuke that also then cleanses and then also gives mana. So as far as the utility troop goes, he's extremely high value as far as I'm concerned, and the amount of damage that he does is pretty solid. So I'd say Voice of Orpheus is a pretty good get. I think he's definitely worth chasing with event keys personally. But then, of course, we also have two other nice people. So Divine Ishbala, I'm sure you've heard me talk about before. Skull Converter, enchanting 2 people. She does loop into herself, so that makes her pretty high value. And she's also getting Divines, all 40% mana starts. So overall, a really high value troop. So if you don't have Divine Ishbala, definitely chase that. And then the other one would be Emperor Corvash. He's used pretty much in a lot of lineups these days because of the meta. You know, there's the life and death nonsense. So stun in general is very high value. So he's doing true damage to 2 people and then also draining their mana. So he's someone that can delay an enemy team's start just by constantly draining, so he's worth it. He's also stunning somebody randomly on 4/5s. I think he's very high value as well. So overall, I think those 3 are pretty solid gets out of the keys this time around. So if you're opening up event keys, that's what you have to look forward to. As far as the event this time around, so always click the wrong one. We've got an invasion. So invasion, of course, is where you have to fight a bunch of towers. For the invasion this time around, it is human troops that you need to be doing it with. But they do give us some pretty cool people to actually work with this. I'm kind of excited about what we got this time around. So the people that we got from a troop perspective would be General Suladin. So he's your traditional looking tower destroyer kind of guy. The thing of note about him though is that he's actually has a damage boost ratio based on Leonis Empire people. So if you're building a team for this event and you're putting a lot of Leonis Empire people in your team, you'll at least have some potential to be boosting the amount of damage he does. Otherwise, he's very, unnoteworthy from that perspective. The fact that he has some skull reduction could be interesting. Obviously in tower events, having your skull killing dude up top is pretty decent if you're not running something like a Mang. So overall, as far as troops go, at least he has some form of boosting. It isn't the highest that we've ever seen, but the fact that it's offered is pretty cool. Because of course, if you get this guy up to Mythic, for instance, for every Leonis Empire person that you have, you'll be doing an extra 4 times 5, so you'd be doing an extra 20 per Leonis Empire person that you'd have. So that's actually really nice. And of course he is Leonis Empire himself, so at a minimum you'll be getting at least 1 boost ratio out of that. So pretty decent troop overall. Not the worst on the planet. In the Glory Shop, the guy that we're getting is, actually I don't think I've purchased him yet, so don't do it that way, is Mr. Katib Tahir. So this guy is kind of whatever, admittedly. So he's just giving a one-time shot of a decent amount of life and 5 attack. If they're human, it's doubling the effect. So you can imagine this might be doing some weird stuff. If you have a troop or an ally that's a human type that's doing some fun stuff with like life gaining, that could be an interesting troop to add into your lineup, since this would theoretically give you a good amount of it. He's also giving you bonus blue mana, so that's also theoretically pretty good. This feels like a troop that would have some kind of sneaky value. So I don't think he's amazing. I don't think he's crazy. However, whenever you can do like a really strong amount of like life generation, for instance, there might be some benefit to this. But I believe as far as humans are concerned, like, Holy Saint Astra is pretty much already doing, your massive amount of life gaining as far as humans are concerned. So I don't necessarily rate this guy super highly. He's not the worst thing on the planet, though. I'm sure he'll have some weird utility later on. But you do at least get 2 Arcane Bloods out of this, so not the worst deal in the world. So that is the new troops that are coming in. Probably the most notably, however, is the new weapon that we're getting. So as far as the weapon's concerned, we're getting this Orpheus verse. So what's cool about this is that it's a mixed type weapon, which is pretty cool. And the mixing is based on humans, so that actually makes this a lot better. There's actually, classes that are human types, and there's also a decent amount of human troops. And the other cool thing about this is that it actually does damage with a boost ratio, which I believe might be the first as far as these weapons are concerned. And if it's not the first, it's especially rare. Usually the damage component on these is kind of uninspiring, not that interesting. However, this one can actually do a little bit of damage, so it's getting a boost ratio of 6. So if you're building an entire human lineup with this, for instance, it's rewarding you in 2 ways. You're getting extra mana generation as a result, and you're also doing more damage as a result. So this weapon, I think, is actually one of the highest value as far as these mixed weapons are concerned. So I would absolutely make sure you're grabbing this out of the event shop when you're going to do your event this time around. I always, of course, say when you're doing the event, make sure you're purchasing up to the weapon tier. So when you're going through your event, make sure that you're buying tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. That's going to be where you find that weapon. Absolutely worth it. Super strong recommend. Beyond all of that, we've got the soulforge, of course. So in the soulforge, weapon-wise, I'll start with, there's this golden sun thing. So this has weird potential, and I'm going to rate this as like a maybe purchase or maybe craft kind of thing, because it's destroying all enemy armor, which means that the scaling, of course, can be like limitless essentially when it comes to events. However, the thing it's giving you is gold, which means the max benefit you're going to get out of it is, if you run someone like Cedric, is going to be 200 gold. Otherwise it'd be 100 or whatever other base you're able to get it with your troops. So like the theoretical max on this is limited based on just the amount of gold you're able to acquire. However, it is just basically giving you like instantly a crap ton of gold. So there's other troops that are better at this, of course, like Greed can do this much faster because Greed is starting empowered, of course. This is taking purple and yellow. So I think that this is maybe worth glancing at. Like if you have spare diamonds, which is, I know, like a weird thing to say, this weapon has weird potential. However, it's really not a high value craft as far as I'm concerned, at least with the existing troops and mechanics in the game right now. You can't really abuse getting a ton of gold right now. Again, because the game will cap you at 100 by default for your fight. So even troops that are doing fun boost stuff based on gold, you're not going to be able to like hit somebody with 500 armor and then gain like, 300 gold as a result to do something cool with gold troops. So that limits this weapon's effectiveness. It is interesting though. So I'm going to craft it just because in case they adjust the gold mechanics later on, I want to make sure that I have something like this that can be boosted by it. But I would not necessarily rate this as a high value craft. But that's everything going on the PC side of things. There's no fun other troops, mythics, kingdoms, all that fun stuff. Of course, we've got our normal faction assault. The class trial this time around is War Priest for later on in the week. War Priest is actually going to be a pretty decent class to be running for this event because you'll be able to get a light storm start and you'll have some skull reduction. It's also a human, so you're going to be able to use that new weapon with that with the teams in the invasion. So if you're running the invasion this time around, keep your eyes on War Priest. I think that's actually going to be a pretty decent class to run this time around. But that is everything on the PC, Xbox, PS4 side of things. For the Switch side of things, we have some other interesting stuff going on. So in the event keys this time around for you guys, it's actually Drac Zoom troops. So if we sort by Drac Zoom on this side and we do our base rarity, and again, don't look at everybody you're going to see in here, we do get Glaceon. So Glaceon's in there. He's extremely high value as far as I'm concerned. I rate him as one of my most valuable troops in the game. I think he's in the top 5. He might be number 5. But the spell effect that he does is insanely strong. So he's, again, converting gems, but then also turning red gems into Doom Skulls, which is especially of note since Doom Skulls will be hitting dramatically harder. It'll also be exploding the board for more mana generation. Really strong spell effect. He's also freezing the strongest enemy, which also makes this even more strong from a spell effect perspective. What's also notable about him is that he's reducing damage from skulls by 65%, which is really, really strong from that point of view. So really strong skull reduction as well. He also has a way to passively increase his own attack. So overall, Glaceon, probably one of the best frontline troops that you can have in the game. So if you don't have Glaceon, I would absolutely say that he's worth chasing as far as that's concerned. The other person that's in there is King Bloodhammer for you guys. So King Bloodhammer, again, doing a Doomskull type conversion. So he's turning all blues, for instance, into Doomskulls. So again, very, very strong spell effect. He also has the benefit of doing damage to 2 people, and it's like an okay amount of damage. So he's somebody that's going to be doing some really nice damage just between his spell effect as well as the Doomskull conversion piece. So King Bloodhammer is someone else that's also very cool. What's a little crazier about him is that when you kill an enemy, he summons a Bone Storm. So the whole idea behind putting someone like King Bloodhammer in your lineup is that when you start your kills with like a skull bashing kind of lineup, you could just end up cascading a bunch of Doomskulls and then just killing and killing and killing. So he's somebody that's pretty scary. When you go up against him or when you have him on your team, you can potentially just create this effect where you just start destroying everybody. Just be aware when this triggers, of course, you're just as susceptible to this as they are. So pray to God that you're looping with your turn so you can be the one taking advantage of this versus letting the other team just destroy you with a bunch of Doomskulls. So that's kind of scary. But that's everything that's really in the event keys side. As far as the glory troop that we guys are getting is Griff. So Griff is kind of weird. So he's destroying a column and then doing splash damage to a random enemy boosted by blue gems destroyed. The boost ratio is okay. So he's somebody that's basically doing an okay amount of damage. It's splash damage, so you'll hit whoever that random target is plus 2 more. The amount of mana generation is pretty poor. Destroying a column is very weak. At most you'll get 8 gems out of that. So not necessarily someone that you'd be looking to use as far as damage is concerned. He's not necessarily the highest damage troop. He does have this other weird thing where he's just passively doing 2 damage to a random enemy on every 4 or 5. So he's kind of like a weaker Taloka in that respect. So of course Taloka is someone I think that on the Switch we had it maybe a week or 2 ago. Who's doing 10 damage on 4 or 5. So Taloka, if you're looking for someone like that's just passively doing damage on 4 or 5s, Taloka would be a lot better of an option than Griff. Taloka, I would argue, would probably be doing a lot more damage in general. He also has the same mana color. So if you're looking to use someone like this, it's pretty rare where this would be higher value than a troop like Taloka is concerned. However, he's not the worst thing on the planet, but definitely more of like an early to mid game type troop that you might be using versus something you'll be using late game. Late game, you'll probably never be touching Griff Stonefeather, but kind of interesting. However, again, if you picked up Taloka, Taloka is going to be the guy you'd want to run over this pretty much always, unless you're looking to do something with Dwarf or Beast for some reason. So that's okay. As far as the event this time around, so you guys are actually doing a Tower of Doom. Tower of Doom, of course, is actually really cool. So for folks that haven't done a Tower of Doom event, basically everybody is getting a board that looks like a delve, and everybody in your guild gets the same floor lineup and floor setup. So you guys need to be communicating amongst yourselves to make sure that you're telling everyone on floor 1 and room 1, this is the reward that you get at the end of that will allow you to more efficiently get all your keys and all that other fun stuff. A very cool event. It's one of the few things where your guild needs to coordinate with each other exclusively. So definitely something that's really nice. However, the most notable thing, and that will have lasting effects on your Gems of War experience, is the release of this Doom Blade. So these Doom weapons are extremely, extremely strong. So any single time you get offered one of these damage type Doom Blades, there's 2 types of Doom weapons. There's healing type Doom weapons, and then there's damage type Doom weapons. The damage type ones are all extremely high value. So make sure for this Tower of Doom event and every future one that you're grabbing these doomed weapons. What they do is they're doing a good amount of damage to all enemies, and it's gaining an extra damage per tempering level, which is, again, like the weapon level. So the amount of damage that it's just doing to all is pretty cool, but then it's transforming some gem color, and in this case it's red, to Doom Skulls. So again, I was just talking before about how strong Glaceon is because he can be transforming things into Doomskulls, how much damage that does, how much benefit you get. This is a weapon that's doing that same kind of a spell effect, only it's also doing damage to all. So as far as like just the spell effect goes, it's kind of crazy. If you are someone that likes to live on the wild side and you're actually using this in your boss fights in the Tower of Doom event, so whenever you're fighting the boss, you are creating 5 extra Doomskulls on top of whatever else it's making. So generally probably not the best strategy as far as like doing the Tower of Doom event. Like using something like this weapon is going to run into a lot of trouble once you get a little deeper into the tower, probably around like floor 15-ish. You'll start to have a lot of problems trying to run a Doomblade type lineup, trying to use this to punch your way through. However, in general, these weapons are extremely high value in PvP and Guild Wars. Has some value within the event, probably again up to like floor 15 or so. However, with Doomblade more specifically, if you're able to, getting this thing up to this frozen level, so this is at level 8, this makes it freeze the first enemy. So this is actually pretty cool. Something that's worth noting is that if the damage part of your spell effect kills the top troop, this will freeze the troop that's then at the top. So this is kind of beneficial. But this freeze component makes this weapon pretty scary as well. Just be aware of this piece. So by getting up to this level, you unfortunately have to get this level. So normally when you're creating a blue gem, that's not that big a deal. That's like just some potential to be looping. However, this is now some way to potentially break your looping. So this is like a failure element built into the weapon, which is kind of frustrating. So you imagine you line up a bunch of, skulls. So you have like skull, red gem, skull, skull, and then you're casting your Doomblade and you're thinking, okay, that'll be turned into skull, doom skull, skull, skull. So you'll get a loop and you'll get a nice damage component. But this creating a blue can just pop a blue in the middle of one of those skulls that you just made. So this makes your loop potentially break, and now you just left a bunch of Doomskulls on the board for the enemy to take. So this is kind of scary. The odds of this actually happening in some way that's going to affect you is pretty low. It's less than 10% chance that this would probably happen to you. Just be aware that if you're leveling this weapon up to its frozen component, you're going to have to deal with this component. So there'll be sometimes you'll cast Doomblade where it'll like fail on you. Worth noting. But again, this weapon extremely high value. All these damage type Doom weapons extremely high value. So for the event, just make sure you're talking amongst yourself. Either be posting in like your guild chat channel, talk on Discord, create a shared Excel sheet, some way of communicating with each other that where the floors are, what's in the floors. So that's pretty cool that you guys have that. The other thing that's going to be crazy for you guys is the soulforge. So I don't envy your situation as far as the soulforge is concerned. So one of the troops that you guys have access to is Infernus. So of course Infernus, super high value. I rate him as an S tier type mythic. Really solid damage to 2 people. It's splash damage, so he's hitting 1 person and then the 2 adjacent, and then hitting another person and then the 2 adjacent. So the amount of damage he does is very strong. He's also exploding the board, so he's getting some extra mana generation and loot potential, which is really nice. And then he also has access to this conflagration, which is burning all enemies on 4 or 5. So super early in the game, burning is like actually a really high value as far as just like raw damage goes. So this is doing 3 damage every turn to everybody. So at the lower levels, if you got access to Infernus early, for instance, just this burn piece would be kind of crazy. However, what this is really used for later on in the game is enabling certain classes to actually be doing triple skull damage. So the Sunspear class, the Dragon Guard class, as far as what you guys have access to now, would be able to do triple skull damage. The Warlord class also actually would be doing this. So if you have any of those classes up to level 100, or you're planning to, someone like Infernus is just going to be that much crazier. The other thing of note about him is that whenever you kill somebody, he summons a firestorm. So of course, if you kill someone, now he's got reds raining down from the sky more often, and then when he's exploding with his spell effect, he's filling himself a lot faster. So overall, as far as Infernus is concerned, extremely high value troop. So you guys have access to that in the Soulforge. If at all you have the diamonds to do this, I strongly recommend doing this. However, you guys also get access to Pharaohs. So this is kind of frustrating because I would probably tell you that you should be crafting both of these. Unfortunately, if you don't already have one, you're going to have to pick. So what Pharos is all about is just soul farming, essentially. So he's giving you 20 souls, which doesn't sound necessarily crazy. However, he's giving you 150% bonus souls from battle. So someone like Pharos is, if you're trying to create a soul economy, if you're trying to build up your souls, if you're trying to save for the Dawnbringer weapon, for instance, Pharos is just insanely high value. Like, there's no such thing as a soul farming team that's effective that doesn't have Pharos Raw in it. So if at all interested as far as souls are concerned, Pharos is extremely high value. The other thing of note is that he's not the worst troop on the planet, especially when it comes to soul farming. At least he gives you some form of mana generation and like pretty solid damage dealing here. So Pharos, very high value just from the soul farming perspective. There's no better soul farming troop in the game. So absolutely worth crafting if you don't have him. However, if you have to pick between Infernus and Pharos Raw, I don't envy that decision. I personally would craft Infernus, but I could see someone making an argument for wanting Pharos over him. Just if Souls is something that you're really struggling with, or if you are really trying to push for that Dawnbringer weapon, Pharos could be worth it more. I would argue Infernus is probably the better craft all day. But, you know, that's my opinion. You're able to obviously craft whatever you like. The other thing would be Yao. So if you weren't able to pick up Yao in the more recent Shang-Tang event, extremely high value troop. Again, he's doing damage to 2 people. The damage is boosted on a 3-to-1 ratio off of his life. So the amount of damage he's doing to 2 people is really strong. He's also stealing 4 magic from each of them when he does it, which is also very strong. So the next time you cast him, he'll be doing even more damage on top of it. And he's also transforming all purples into reds. He takes red himself, so he'll be able to loop into himself. So as far as legendary troops are concerned, Yao is actually, I would argue, one of the best, if not the best, legendaries in the game. So really, really strong troop, worth crafting. He's also just passively stealing 3 life every time you match red gems. So again, just overall, Yao extremely great. So between Infernus and Pharos and Yao now, you guys have like a plethora of things you could be crafting, which is, you know, pretty rough for you guys, since that's not going to be the most fun thing in the world. So that is everything on the Switch side of things. The only thing that I'll mention is that for the Switch, you guys have access to Fallen Valdis. So Fallen Valdis, unfortunately, is like not the best troop. So this was just released last week. This is not the best, so from an event key chasing perspective, like really not that good. So, you know, even though you guys got a new mythic, unfortunately, it's just not a good one. The spell effect is very specific to divines, so if you know you're facing divines for some reason or another, this troop can have some value. However, beyond that, it's just really not. The explosion's pretty weak. It's specific to Doomskulls, which is also pretty rare. It's only doing cool spell effects if you're facing divines, so like this is not all that especially interesting. And then from like a traits perspective, there's really nothing all that interesting either. Disease is a fairly weak debuff. So unfortunately, Fallen Valdis, not that exciting. So not that cool from a new mythic perspective for you guys. But yeah, that is everything coming in on the Switch side. And that is everything for every platform this week. So yeah, pretty cool week for everybody, I would say. I mean, as far as the Switch side, you guys have a cool Tower of Doom to run through. On the PC side and the Xbox and the PS4, a really cool weapon in the Orpheus verse. Absolutely something that we're all going to be playing with for many, many days, months, years to come. Event Key's having some decent stuff. So overall, pretty cool week for everybody. Again, keep your eyes open on your flash offers. You could be getting offered some cool weapon. I unfortunately did not. However, there could be something fun in there, so keep your eyes peeled. As I mentioned before on stream, I'm actually going to be traveling from today to tomorrow to the next day. So I'll be back on Wednesday night, basically. So I'm planning on doing a stream on Thursday at a minimum. But yeah, that is everything that's going on cool Gems of War-wise, and with me at least. So thanks for tuning in, of course, as always, and feel free to subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed any of this, or if you just want to hear more of my voice, or watch me stream, anything fun like that. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next video. Talk to you later.